Maggie, welcome to the show. Tell me
Thank you
about your
so much.
vision.
My vision is talking to people about my vision is community. So it's really about helping people be in relationship with one another, and there's a number of ways that that can happen for everyone. And my vision is to be an encourager of that.
Tell me more about that.
Sure. So one of the things that we did while we were doing we did a boat trip called the Great Loop, and it took us about 9 months. And we got to leave Chattanooga. We went downriver, went across the Gulf of Mexico, around Florida, up the East Coast, into New York, through Canada, and then back down the Great Lakes and back down the rivers home to Chattanooga. And in that, we got to meet so many diverse people, right? So you have people that are different from the region, different experiences, different ages, and it was so life giving to be able to get to know them and to be in relationship with people and just hear different experiences that people have had. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, before I met your husband and talked
Uh-huh.
to him, right, I had no idea you could actually do that.
I know,
You
right? Most
could,
people don't. Only about 250 boats a year do it. So we had our own boat, and it's one of those things that you do kind of you're on your own boat, but you're not doing it alone, right? Because you're traveling in community with people.
yeah. So did you like when you traveled, was just you and your husband that along went along the road trip in your own boat and
Yep.
it's like your own little space that you did
Or
that?
it
And
was kind of like a tiny house on water. It was us and our dog. So we were in about 290 square feet for 9 months.
that's amazing. And how like I might be like, I don't know, this is getting me into details about it. Like
Yeah.
what's probably the biggest boat that can fit through all those places?
Oh, that's a great question. Our boat was small. So we were a 29-foot Ranger tug, and we had, it's called a draft. So we were 2.5 feet deep. So we could go in pretty shallow areas. And being pretty small, we could fit in a lot of different places. I think the biggest boats are probably, uh, I would say we're on the small side. Larger boats would be maybe 45 or 50 feet long. And then some people have a 5 foot draft. And so you're limited by actually the height of your boat. There is
Mm,
a bridge in, I want to say it's in Chicago, that you have to be under. I can't remember exactly what the footage is, but you have to be under that level to be able to fit under the bridge. Otherwise, you can't do the whole thing. So
okay, that makes
I think our height clearance was probably, when everything was down, probably 11 feet, 10 feet maybe.
that makes sense.
So,
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's amazing.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, sure.
Um, so tell me more about the vision. Like how did you end up in the community aspect of things and what's about the communities that you like to build?
Sure. So, I have always found hospitality to be um, an avenue for that. And so, one of the things that we would do while we were traveling is we would have something called docktails, and that is just where boaters would gather at the end of the day. We'd sit outside at the marina or a public park nearby or wherever we had docked and just trade stories about how the day went, what was the hardest part of the day, what was the most fun part of the day, what we were looking forward to, and just share information. And so, one of the things that we did coming home from that is that we decided we wanted to do a regular kind of docktails type thing back home in Chattanooga. And so, one of the things that we did is to gather up the I we gathered up people for dinner parties basically. So I had wanted to have I think the first year we came back, I think I wanted to have like 24 dinner parties, and that was a little ambitious. So we didn't have that many. But one of the things that we did do is we probably met with different people once a month, and tried to introduce people that we knew to people that didn't know each other, which was really fun to explore that and to build relationships that way. In 2025, we started off the year and decided we'd twist it just a little bit and just have a relatively stable group of people that we would meet with once a month. Um, and it's been fabulous, right? We've got to visit with people who are really involved in civic organizations, and some that are in the medical profession, and some that are um, like Bruce in the tech profession. And so it's been a marvelous way to encourage one another in the things that we're doing and to introduce people. Like, we're the common thread. We knew all these people, but they didn't know each other, right? And to help facilitate those relationships has been great.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So when you mean that you're on a boat ride and you're going along and meeting people,
Yeah.
like is like a group of people that traveling together in their separate boats, or like and this all planned together, or like you just randomly happen to see a bunch of boats going to doing the same thing you were doing.
Right, right. So the trip is seasonal. So you will come down the center of the country in the fall, go across the Gulf of Mexico and Florida in the winter, and then head up the East Coast in the spring, and then somewhere in the north, whether it's in Canada or the Great Lakes up there or the Erie Canal. And so people start at different times of the year based on where they are living or where they put their boat in. And so we recognize each other because if you're doing the trip for the first time, you're flying what's called a white burgee. A burgee is just a flag that goes on the front of your boat and it has the Great Loop symbol on it.
Mm.
And so we would be traveling and we would see people with that flag and we would know that they were what we call loopers. There was also a app that people register for so that you can see who's near you. And so you can reach out to them via the app to see what they're doing and where they're staying. And so we called it loop frogging because we would encounter people that we might have seen in the rivers and we might see them again in Florida and then we might see them again in New York, right? But we didn't necessarily travel with the same set of boaters each time. Yeah, that's it. And
Yeah,
so that's the loop.
that's amazing. That's so fascinating. That's awesome, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just about the trip that we took. We went instead of going kind of they follow the Erie Canal when they're in New York. So we just went straight up into Canada. We went up the St. Lawrence River up into Montreal and then took this little tiny waterway called the Rideau Canal through Canada and then met up with another canal and followed that through. But we spit out at just about the same place. So
That's awesome. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that story
sure,
with me.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great fun.
Yeah. Um, Maggie, what would you say is the why of what you do?
I think the why of what I do really is because kind of like when we traveled on the loop and I said we were on our own, but we weren't alone. I think that it's really important with the world that we live in that it can feel lonely, but it doesn't need to feel lonely, right? So I think I want to encourage people to be able to meet their neighbors, to really get to know their coworkers, whatever that looks like. A lot of people work from home. My husband is remote, and so his coworkers, his friends are online, right? And I think that it's human connection is really valuable, and that's one of the things that we foster when I run our conference. We run a conference called Gig City Elixir, and we do it to let people really be in person and get to know each other, right? So we build in breaks in the conference and we build in time for dinner where the attendees can go to this event place. We do it at the Moxie Hotel, and they have this great outdoor space, and we have a food truck, and there are pockets. There are little tables here and there, and games that people can play, um, just to be able to set the stage for people to build those relationships. It's wonderful.
That's awesome. Wow, that's amazing. Um, what would you say that has been a little bit of impact of you living that way and connecting people that way?
I think it has been well, for me, for the conference, part of it is that people will then send us notes afterwards and say they've never felt as connected at a conference, right? That feels really good. And that I don't know that that is a focus on a lot of other tech conferences, right? I think those relationships can happen, but I think that they happen when the stage is set a little bit more intentionally for that time to happen. Um, and so for me, it's just deeply satisfying, right? To be able to connect people that don't know each other.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Um, I have one more question for you
Sure.
before we end today's segment. Um, how did you get started on this community front of all things? Like, what was the journey like early in the days? Your entrepreneur side. I know your husband owns the business
Mhm.
and needs to start the one started that business. How did you get involved in all that?
Oh, I got involved because he said, "Hey, I think we should run a conference." And I was
Mm.
like, "We don't know how to do that." So, but I I did have some experience. I was a meeting planner in a previous life before we had children. So I worked at a conference center, but we just did small meetings for businesses that needed a place off site. So I did have some experience with that, but but not much. So that's really how I got involved. Bruce said, "Oh, you can do this." Yeah, sure. And so that's how I got into video editing. Like, it's like, "We need to have a video editor. You want to do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess I can learn that." And then same with the podcasting, like editing that. I guess I can learn that.
Yeah.
So it was just and this the opportunity presented itself and here we went. But as far as the people and the connecting, that has always been a deeply held value of mine. I am the neighbor that knocks on the door when somebody moves in with a plate of cookies or something, right? So I try to live it, I try to model it. One of the things that I thought about when we were on our trip um, was that if you want a better neighborhood, you need to be a better neighbor
For
and
sure.
to take some ownership of that. Like, what does that look like for me? How am I going to be a better neighbor to the young mom next door to me or to, the neighbors that might be going out of town? If I can offer to water their plants or take care of their dog or whatever it looks like, just to be available and to just try to remember um, that we all need something at some point, right? Even if it's like I might be out of salt. What if I just go knock on that neighbor's door and ask? Because people like to be of service, right? So you have to ask it. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to offer it.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.